Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is kind of going to be a chatty topic video because we are going to be discussing genre bias. Elliot Brooks mentioned this in a video that she had previously, which was where she was reacting to the Times Top 100 YA books, and she mentioned in it the topic of genre bias, which has obviously existed for a very long time, but I just thought it would be something that would be interesting to talk about because it's just not something that people discuss very much, and I don't think that people outside of the bookish world think about it at all, but I do just think that it's an important topic to talk about, and I would like to discuss my thoughts on it, I guess, and get your guys' thoughts on it as well in the comments, because I think that it is a bit of an issue, if we're being perfectly honest. Now, when I'm talking about genre bias, I am talking about the fact that there are certain people that are out there that, whether consciously or unconsciously, look down on other genres of literature purely because they don't think that it has merit for whatever reason. I feel as though this mostly happens outside of the bookish community because it's people that prefer highbrow literature, or whatever they would call literary fiction, or whatever, what have you, the classics, things like that, things that people consider to be the best examples of writing of all time or whatever, and they kind of look down on other genres just because they don't contribute anything to society as a whole. I'm going to say this is totally unscripted, so I mean, I don't script my videos anyway, but I don't even have talking points that I want to discuss, so this might be a little bit of a rambling mess, but I think that it's something that we need to discuss within the bookish community because it not only exists with people that aren't a part of this community, but it exists a little bit within our bookish community as well, because there will be people, I feel like people within the bookish community just tend to look down romance as a genre in general, whether you read a lot of literary fiction, whether you read a lot of classics, whether you read a lot of like sci-fi or fantasy. A lot of people just think of romance and women's fiction as lesser. And that, for one, has always bothered me because I'm a big romance reader. There was a very large period in my life where it was the only thing that I read for a very long time. I grew up reading fantasy, I grew up reading sci-fi, but I hit a certain age and I just kind of flipped a switch and I just read any romance novel I could get my hands on. Probably through my emotional teenage years is where that started. We don't have to delve too far into the psychological reasons of why, but I think that's probably where it happened for me. And I think that as a whole, everybody tends to look, this is not groundbreaking news, everybody knows this, but as a whole, people tend to look down on romance as a genre because they don't think that it contributes anything. They think that it's fluffy, they think that it's dumb, they think that a story about people falling in love is not worth anything, it doesn't teach you anything, and it's awful. While I would say that there are toxic romances, there are badly written romances, there are romances that definitely probably should not have been made, there are many, many good ones out there too. They cover a wide variety of secondary genres, they cover a wide variety of representation. I mean, more so recently than in previous years, but still, they are starting to get a lot better about rep within romance novels, and it's just sometimes reading fiction doesn't have to mean something. Sometimes you just want to read a book that's going to feel good or make you feel good, and for a lot of people, that's the romance genre. Now, this wasn't meant to be a video standing on a soapbox talking about how romance shouldn't be talked down upon, because it's true. But if I wanted to talk about a specific example in my life, I don't read a lot of nonfiction, guys. I don't read a lot of literary fiction. I don't read a lot of contemporary anymore outside of any romance that I read. I mean, that's pretty much the only contemporary that I really touch. And so 99% of my reading material is science fiction or fantasy or romance. That's it. And people that don't read those things look down on them, and I really don't understand it. I don't know if it's like residual nerd culture. I don't know if it's because Gen Xers or boomers or whatever, just the ones that I've spoken to and have looked down upon those specific genres, just that's how they grew up, seeing nerdy things as not worth much. I really don't know. I don't even know if that made any sense. But in my particular life, I have been talking to people about what I read or what I like to read, and when they've found out that I'm a really big reader, they ask what I read, and I've usually answered with science fiction, fantasy, romance. I tell the truth. I'm not trying to hide it. I enjoy what I enjoy. That's 99% of my bookshelf. In fact, I would say the only nonfiction that is up here are John's books. And that's a very tiny portion of my bookshelves. There's nothing wrong with not reading in those genres. I want to be very, very clear about that. There's nothing wrong with liking literary fiction, liking classics, liking anything. If you like to read it, I am happy for you. Have at it. Go ahead. My issue comes in as when you look down on what somebody else is reading as lesser than what you do. Just let people be happy. Let them read what they want to read. In my particular life, I was starting to go into this story a second ago and then I got sidetracked. But in my particular life, like I said, I have talked to people about what I've been reading. I'm not trying to hide it. I read science fiction, fantasy. I read romance. And I have actually been told the words, "Oh, but you don't read real things." Literally, no, I read fiction. Fiction is not real things. But that's not what they meant. They meant I don't read real things that would contribute to either myself as a person or society as a whole. I don't read real things. I don't really know where anybody, for the record, would get away or would find it okay to say that, to just dismiss how I spend 99% of my time. It's not okay. I mean, we in the bookish community, we tend to read to escape, and I don't know, a lot of us are very introverted individuals, so I don't really like interacting with this particular person as it is, but to be told that my hobby, which is reading, is comprised of me not worrying about real things because it's not what they like to read, really set me off. That's a thing that has stuck with me. It happened many years ago, but it's just, I've always been encouraged to read whatever I want to read, perhaps to a fault, because I was definitely reading some things when I was in middle school or elementary school that I should not have had my hands on, but I did. And I think that it has made me a better reader. I think that I am able to now know what I like and what I don't like, and therefore don't pick it up. And what I don't like is 99% of literary fiction. High school made me hate classics. I think that's a common story for a lot of people out there. I definitely am not throwing any shade at anybody that prefers to read classics. They're just not for me. I don't tend to like the writing style. There's exceptions to this, of course. I did love, like, Pride and Prejudice, and I believe I started to read Jane Eyre. I didn't hate it. There's exceptions. But as a whole, it's not for me. And that's okay, because it doesn't have to be. People are allowed to read what they want to. That is why genres exist, to divide books into something that people can decide if this is something they want to read or don't want to read. And this is without me even getting into the whole adult versus YA versus middle grade thing, because one, those are not genres, those are age ranges, and I think that they kind of get intermixed a lot when it shouldn't be. Specifically the YA age range, just because a lot of people seem to call it a genre and it's not. But we're getting sidetracked. However, I do think that YA does tend to get looked down upon in the same way that romance does a lot of the time. But I don't know, it's just something that I kind of wanted to talk about with you guys, to see what your thoughts are. I know that we all are aware that genre bias exists. I know that there's a lot of people that get mad about the hate that romance receives or the hate that fantasy receives, because apparently we're all just, like, dumbasses with our head in the clouds because we like to read things that aren't real. But if you think about it, there's a lot of imagination, there's a lot of art, there's a lot of creativity that goes into building something out of absolutely nothing. I mean, the world building that happens in fantasy is incredible. I mean, you've got to build an entire world from scratch. You've got to build, oftentimes, magic systems, oftentimes races, and while a lot of them do tend to be recycled from book to book, you've got to create a story within a world that doesn't actually exist, and that takes a lot more effort than non-writers tend to realize. It's not just us living with our heads in the clouds and, like, I don't know, not paying attention to real life. I don't really understand the hatred that you get out of sci-fi and fantasy. or why it would be lesser than anything else. And then when on the other hand, you've got sci-fi, and science fiction is incredible. I mean, you think of all of the things that these people have to think of about what our futures could look like, and they put so much work and a lot of times so much research into making sure that what they're talking about is plausible, because science fiction, while it and fantasy can kind of tangle together in certain stories, science fiction is more factual most of the time. Like, they're trying to stay within the rules of this world but create something that doesn't yet exist. I think that's incredible, and I think that it brings your head out of the box. I think that it really makes you expand your mind to what possibilities could be there in the future, and a lot of times science fiction does become science fact. There are a lot of actual scientists that go into writing science fiction, or people that do a lot of research, such as Andy Weir, because honestly, a lot of the science in The Martian and Project Hail Mary is accurate, but those things don't exist yet. It's just incredible to me. And to look down on a genre or genres that do that, it definitely rubs me the wrong way to think of them as lesser because they don't have some kind of moral lesson or, I don't know, some ethical knowledge to impart to you. I don't think that any genre is better or less than others, and I think that I'm just going to wrap up this video with saying that read what you want to read, be happy, and don't police what other people want to read because it's not what you think is important to you or the world, because who cares what they do? How does it affect you at all? Yeah, I think that's it. This kind of got a little bit ranty, but let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. I don't even know what this video is going to look like in editing. Like I said, I didn't even have any points that I wanted to touch on specifically, but I do want to know what your guys' thoughts are on genre bias, stories maybe, if you guys have experienced somebody like looking down on what you've read just because they don't think that it is worth the same as what they think you should be reading. So yeah, that is, I guess, it for me today, guys. I hope you'll go down in the comments and talk to me about this entire issue as a whole. I hope you guys are having a great day or night. As usual, all of my affiliate links and my social media for my Goodreads, my Twitter, and my Instagram are down below in case you guys want to follow me for anything. And I will talk to you in my next one. Bye.